the meeting. And so thank you for that, Luis. We're going to go ahead, and this is a meeting of the subcommittee of the to discuss budget, subcommittee of the board. So generally what we do is just go down the agenda, and if anyone has any questions, I believe Dr. Burke is unable to join us this evening. So we'll go through whatever questions I might have, or if there's anything in particular that you feel is important to share. And I'm starting with 11.1, which is a change order. And my question about it is, I'm understanding is that this is due to the difficulty we had with having the project completed and having to take over and change things up. My question is if we're expecting that we're going to end up having to pay for this versus does it stem from the issues we had in the contract, and wouldn't that be their obligation? So maybe
I just want to make sure I understand your question. So it's item number, which one are you referring to?
11.1.
11.1
is the Liberty Mutual Insurance Company issue.
And I'm not sure I fully understand your question. So I wanted to ask.
My understanding is that some of this was due to the default of on their contract. And because of that, we ended up with added charges. Is that correct? Or is this something we were expecting anyway?
No, actually you are correct. I had to do a little history on this particular item because it did happen prior to my arrival. And it's my understanding that Vila Construction filed for bankruptcy and abandoned the project. And the project sat idle for over 16 months. And so in that time, the escalation factor, of course, of the cost of work to complete is, of course,
that clock kept ticking.
Right. The clock is ticking. But also during that 16-month period of time, because we didn't have, I guess, we have incremental checks that we do with the Department of State Architect when we have projects that are ongoing. We missed a few of those during that period of time, and they revisited that project, and actually due to some regulatory changes that occurred for fire life safety as well as structural enhancements for school sites, we had to come back and make those adjustments in that project. And so that is part of why we have this added expense, is that we are basically completing our obligation as what's mandated by us, but we're also picking up that extra cost that's associated with the project that's delayed for more than a year.
So my question is, if this was due to the delay because of the company defaulting on their obligation, wouldn't that be their cost?
Yes and no. It would be their cost as long as the scope of work did not change. But because the scope of work changed, and it changed based on what our requirements were, we have to pay for that added expense of the scope change, but not necessarily the delay.
Okay, but the scope would, I mean, maybe there are other scope pieces that we changed anyway, but if the scope changed because the law changed, that wouldn't have impacted us if we had not been delayed, then again, that should be their burden, not ours.
That is actually a question that we are having a discussion with our legal counsel, and is not one that I can fully answer at this time. But
as long as you're pursuing that, that's all.
We are pursuing all angles to recoup our funds. I'll just leave it at that.
Perfect. And then glasses back on. I'm looking at 11.5, and I understand the necessity for the cabinets. I'm trying to remember if I had a question on that. Nope. Moving on. So the 7-Eleven committee, I'm very excited that we've gotten applications from wonderful individuals who are willing to participate. Do we have a time frame on when we anticipate we might be able to wrap this up?
As soon as you all approve the committee, we will
Mhm.
begin our work.
Okay,
And since we only have a limited number of sites that I guess we're looking at, so that will definitely help expedite the work of the committee.
yeah. I think we only are doing one site, right?
For right now, unless the board decides to name other sites they would like
Okay.
us to look at.
Okay, great. And then to the custodial positions, which is 15.5. I just want to make sure I'm understanding the document, the presentation. On 2 of 3, it's indicating that in 21-22, if we return these positions, we will have to make $16 million in cuts in order to, is that correct? In order to maintain our 3% reserve?
16 million. So so basically what it shows is that in the
Sorry, not all of that is because of the custodians, but that's what it's
Right.
showing us, right?
Right,
Sorry,
so-
I wasn't clear.
right prior to in our current state right now, based on our 45-day May revision, I mean 45, I'm thinking, I'm getting mixed. I said 45-day May revision, 45-day budget revision. We showed 16.1 million was projected for 21-22, and if we decide to bring back the additional 12.25, then that number would increase to 17.7.
And that actually ends up with just a deficit factor of 2.7. Correct? What are,
That,
what is
well,
the cuts we would have to
Sorry.
make?
no, well, the addition is would enable us to meet the board reserve of 3% minimum reserve. So
So what are the actual cuts that we need to make, total amount?
that we haven't decided. We'll probably bring a recommendation to the board by February. So because by that time the governor's budget, we'll have updated information on the budget. And so I would think the earliest we'll probably be bringing recommendations would be either in February or March of next year.
Right, but according to this, the revenue enhancements or expenditure reductions are 16.1. And then there's an additional deficit factor of 2.7. Is that additional or is that total? Sorry, I'm
just-
just trying to understand the
The
document.
2.7 is just the difference in the revenues and expenses. That's actually our deficit. But
Okay.
the amount, yeah, but the 16.1 represents what we would need to cut to meet our minimum reserve and meet the board's 3% minimum reserve.
But is the 16.1 what we would have to cut, and then it would get us to a deficit of 2.7, and then we would need to make up an additional 2.7?
No, the 16.1 is what we would, based on what we presented for 45-day budget revision. 16.1 is what we would have to cut. The 2.7 is it just shows that we don't have a balanced budget, but it doesn't mean we have to make additional 2.7.
Okay, I just wasn't understanding that line, so thank you. So 16.1 according to this at this time.
Right, at this
But
time.
because
right. And you know-
everything's so crazy, and who
Right.
knows what it's gonna really be.
well,
Okay.
exactly.
All right, well, at least it's better than it might have been. Okay, I wanted to understand that. And then the outdoor facility use. Explain this one to me. Is this at the at the full, what we had initially back before COVID hit would have had as a rental for outdoor facility use? Or is this a factor of some variety?
You're on 15.6?
Sorry, I am on 15.6, correct.
So ask that again, and I'm sorry, I don't think Robbie or I.
No, that's okay. So with 15.6, it is saying, we're recommending that we go ahead with our outdoor facility use, correct? Once within the
Yeah.
guidelines. So has this calculation been altered at all to our new situation? Or is it anticipating that the outdoor rental would be the same as it was prior to COVID? It's not accounting for any slack or change or anything?
When we adopted the budget, we did adjust facility rentals because in a normal year, we were projecting, I think, Robbie, about 1.4 million, or was it higher?
1.4 million was in the adopted budget, yes.
Right, but I'm saying normally we had already adjusted that based on the pandemic, because prior to that, it would have been higher if we were not in a pandemic situation. We would have.
That is true.
Right.
But was that for all facility use? Because we have indoor and outdoor use, or is it only for outdoor use?
For the 1.43 million, that is for both indoor and outdoor that we projected during budget adoption.
Right.
Okay.
So depending on when we can have authority to do indoor and outdoor is going to affect our first interim, because we will, we'll generate a new impact based at first interim based on how much we've used our facilities, how much we've rented them, and but right now that's where it was when we adopted our budget, and we'll update that again at first interim. Yeah, so this amount, if we end up saying only outdoor and not indoor, it won't be as much as $1 million, correct? It's likely to be less than that. It will be less. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, it will be less.
We actually projected how much we would be gaining for outdoor facility rental based on prior year experience, and what we were projecting is a good 100,000 to 125,000. More of our revenue from rental facilities are from indoor rental.
Right. So the dollar amount on this is inaccurate if we take your recommendation.
Well, we would, yeah, because what we show here is the historical numbers, but yeah, if we just do the outdoor, then this would be updated for first interim when we get the first interim. But like I said, there's a lot that can happen between now and December.
What we're saying on
I've stopped guessing.
What we're saying on the agenda item, if the board does not allow both indoor and outdoor, then we would lose the 1.01 million.
Got it. That would be the impact. Understood. Okay, that makes sense. And then Thornton budget increase, which is 15.9. Can you give me a Reader's Digest brief overview of this, Dr. Lynch McMahon?
It's not one of those 3-sentence answers, but
That's okay.
as you know, we have been working with Thornton for quite some time with lots of challenges that we've encountered due to just the soil that it sits on. And unfortunately, all of Fremont sits on the same soil, and we are encountering several of the same problems at all of the sites. Unfortunately, this particular site has been very challenging for us, and challenging in the sense that it's just been Pandora's box when we started to go underground. But needless to say, we are requesting an additional budget increase to the program because the costs that we have incurred to date are above what was anticipated when the project was initially budgeted. And it has also been what we feel unfairly targeted in terms of very stringent regulation requirements due to the size and nature of the school. So we have been working with California Geological Survey, as well as the Department of State Architects since the beginning of the year to request for them to relax their requirements that they originally had specified for us that we needed to implement for the infrastructure for the school. And we've spent a lot of time reviewing conditions and solutions, and we finally have come up with solutions that are credible and acceptable to the agencies that will give us the approval. But of course, there's a price tag always attached to every change and every challenge. And so the bulk of these costs are underground. They are not costs associated with the design of the facility or increased programming requests or any of the things that we normally have specified for our middle schools. But because the cost has been borne in the beginning of the job, it is now affecting what follows after. And so we have now been fully engaged in our post-COVID-19 pandemic, and we're experiencing a lot of challenges across the board. And so what you see in front of you is a culmination of all of that and us trying to make sure that we finish this project in a very responsible and respectful manner as to keep the program moving. So
I appreciate that. I mean, I think that you're working really hard, clearly, to try to get this project. I think this has always been too much on too little to try to smush, such a large program on such a small piece of property. I think was the mistake we made at the very beginning, and it's what I've argued since the beginning. I think that I appreciate that we're trying to do our best to optimize, but a lot of the regulation is in place for safety reasons. So we don't want to impact how safe the facility is in order to, be able to cost cut or continue to march forward. And I feel bad that this is what gets dumped in your lap, right? Here you go. Work this out. I think it's poor planning on our part, but I think that's the last thing I have a question on. Is there anything that has come up that we should be aware of? Anything else going on?
Well, I think
fiscally?
on a positive note, because
Really
you guys
positive.
always see me whenever I'm coming to ask for something when things have gone wrong. On a positive note, all of the projects over the last month have been moving along very well. If you happen to go by Grimmer, the fence is up and completed. We filed the notice of completion, I believe on Tuesday. And so it's functional, operational. We didn't have any changes and it looks beautiful. So if you ever have an opportunity to swing by there and see. The other positive is that if you go to Horner Middle School, you'll see that the playfields are well under construction. And there is a beautiful rendering that they have posted, I believe, on the side of the multipurpose room that is on the outside. So as passers-by can observe, they will see that it's just coming along really beautifully, and it's going to be a wonderful place for the community to congregate and have fun once we're relieved from our shelter in place.
Once fun is a thing again.
And
I
the third
did,
thing-
there was, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go right ahead.
I was just gonna add, I did miss asking about the reallocation of funds. So there was, what was it, American that had funds left?
So
and-
American High School is 98, 99% complete, and we have a nice chunk of money that's still left over from some cost saving measures that we took and not using all
Is
of
this
our.
even after doing the AC piece?
This is even after doing the AC. We have an awesome contractor who's been working with us, and I call them working their magic. We've been able to realize our savings in the sense that there was money that was not spent. And so rather than going and taking it out of the general fund, I'd like to reallocate those funds so that they can be used and put back into the program so that Horner can actually accomplish some of the things that we still need to do out there with regard to some of the site utilities.
So is this expanding Horner's budget then?
It
Beyond
is
what their contingency is?
It is
with other
expanding
ones?
their contingency budget, but as I had explained before, this particular item, I believe the last board meeting, we approved the $300,000 for the utility tie-in. Horner and Hirsch have the same feed for gas and power, and it's very complicated, but there's all these little spandrels that go in multiple directions, but the main feed is actually on Hirsch's campus. And so in order for Horner to be completed, we also have to fix what we have going on at Hirsch. But of course, Hirsch is not part of the Measure program at this particular moment.
Mhm.
So we're just trying to be as responsible as we can to get everything back up and running and fix it with the funds we have available with a project that's currently going on right now. So that's the reason for the ask.
Okay, because normally, right, any leftover funds go back to the contingency and then would be pulled from that contingency if needed.
Correct. Correct.
So it's sort of skipping a step, but I think as long as the trustees understand, what this means about the contingency fund and where it is, whether it was not enough, and therefore we're taking from that, and that leaves it would leave a smaller amount, except that we had funds left over, except I think we've always planned and hoped that there's funds left over in these contingencies. So, okay, well, thank you for that information. And I think that's all I have. Zion, do you have anything that you wanted to ask on any of these?
I was going to ask on 15.5 and 6, but you covered that, so I don't have anything.
And you got your questions answered?
Yep.
Okay, great. And that's all I have. So I hope everyone has a relaxing weekend and stays cool, and don't forget to get out of the smoky air, and hopefully all of our houses are safe and that we are able to relax a little bit before the beginning of the week. So thank you all for taking the time to be on there. Ms. Bianchini, thank you. I appreciate everyone coming online. So
Have a nice weekend, everybody.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank
Have a nice
you.
weekend.